Welcome back. What happens when you discover that somebody else may not represent the one in marriage? The one. The first wound is rejection, right? Then rejection breeds obsession. Obsession becomes comparison. Comparison becomes neediness, and neediness can turn you into the least attractive version of yourself at the exact moment when you need your power the most. Today, I'm going to show you how to stop surrendering your value to a rival, and then rise above intimidation by comparison. This is a serious problem in marriages today, especially marriages that are broken down. How do you stop being intimidated by comparison, either internally or by your estranged partner? And how do you rebuild attraction from grounding, purpose, and self-leadership? All right, that's what I want to talk about today, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Let's jump to the whiteboard real quick. All right, all of it is very simple. Okay, we're going to start off with discovery on the board, right? So you discover that your partner may be in love with somebody else, right? Yeah. So what happens after you discover? This is typically what happens. I'm going to show you exactly what happens, and then we're going to talk about that. Then that leads to rejection. That leads to rejection. Okay. What happens after rejection? Obsession, guys. Obsession. You start getting obsessed over every little detail. You want to know what is going on. How does this happen? How did we get here? Yeah, obsession. This is not good, as you can imagine, right? Obsession leads to what? Comparison. So maybe they've been comparing you. Maybe you feel like they've been comparing you. Maybe you feel intimidated by this other person, right? Whichever one, all of the above. Okay, so we're just gonna put comparison right here, right? You know, when they say comparison is the thief of joy, this is so true. This is also true in attraction, right? As you can imagine. So comparison leads to what? Comparison leads to neediness. Leads to neediness. You start becoming needy. All right? Some people call it nagging. You call it you're just trying to fix your marriage, right? So neediness leads to, guess what? It leads to repulsion. It gets worse. It gets worse and worse and worse, guys. It leads to repulsion. Let's put that on here. Repulsion. Hit the like button as you're coming in, guys. Hit the like button. We're going to talk about this. It leads to repulsion. Like they reject you, withdraw, distance, all of that is happening at the same time, right? And what else happened here, right? From repulsion, repulsion will make you remember the obsession. Well, you discover even more. You start looking at, you start getting obsessed. You start hyper vigilant. You're paying attention to every little detail, and it just gets worse and worse and worse, right? So I'm gonna put a red arrow that goes from here, that goes back to even more discovery. It's a bad loop, guys. It's a very, very bad loop. This is not where you want to find yourself, guys. This is what I want to discuss today. All right, this is what I want to discuss today. This is the reality of what's going on with a lot of people. All right, so let me just say this real quick at this point in time. If you are going through this kind of situation right now, if you find yourself in this if you have discovered messages, an emotional affair between your estranged partner and someone else, another relationship, or signs that somebody else may now represent the one, do not panic. Okay, I don't know, that's an oxymoron. You might just already be in that state already, but I want you to know that it's okay. Don't allow panic to become your marriage strategy. That's really what I want to say. The wrong reaction can strengthen the very comparison that is already hurting you. And what you need to do is you need to book a discovery session with me. It's a private session, and let's examine what is actually happening. Let's identify the anti-attractive patterns that has led your marriage down the drain, and let's build a grounded strategy to help you regain your power and help you build a stronger marriage. All right, let's do that. I think that's going to be your best bet right now. So now, anyway, today we're going to talk about married but in love with someone else. Can your marriage survive? Hello, relief from real life. Relief from real life. Welcome. All right, so let's talk about this. As I was saying earlier on, everything starts from discovery, right? So this is actually discovery, not discovery, right? You discover that your partner or someone else or something else is taking over the attention that you crave so badly, attention that you used to get from them. Something terribly has happened to your marriage, and now everything is deteriorating, right? And as you can see, that path that you're looking at in front of you is not, there's no way it's fun. If it was fun, you wouldn't be here. So, and that's why I wanted to take some time to really talk about this today. I'm no stranger to what we're discussing here today. This is in many ways my story. Either someone else or something else is taking the attention away from the marriage. You see, years ago when my wife began pulling away, I was completely caught off guard. Normal calls from me suddenly felt like jealousy, obsession, insecurity to her. I kept trying to explain my confusion, but the more I explained, the needier I sounded and the angrier she became. My intention was not to suffocate her. I'm sure your intention is not to suffocate your partner in this space right now. But, attraction does not respond to intentions. I keep telling you that, right? What she experienced was pressure. I had to learn that when rejection activates panic, your attempt to save the marriage can become the very behavior that pushes your partner even further away. All right, so 2 years into dating Lola, I'm talking about 20 plus years ago now, I genuinely believed I had found the one. Okay, well, luckily enough, we're still here 20 plus years later. But what I did is I proposed with complete certainty that fate had brought us together. But when our marriage entered that crisis, you see, that same soulmate belief, how should I say this? You see, that belief could have, now like reflecting, I think it was a trap, okay? If you believe only one human being can ever occupy that position, the possibility of losing them feels like losing your entire future. And that's not the state of mind you want to be at. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. You see, fear takes over. Abundance disappears. You know when they say abundance mindset, right? That disappears, and then you start behaving as though you have no identity without their approval. That energy is not seductive. It is heavy. It's unnecessary. Well, I won't say unnecessary, but it's an energy that backfires, okay, badly. So eventually I stopped trying to talk attraction back into Lola. I started learn everything I'm teaching you right now, and I gave the situation time and space, right? That doesn't mean disappearing from your responsibilities, all right? It doesn't mean using silence as manipulation. I redirected my pain into purpose, mission, and I became more intentional about my personal mission in life. And anyway, I still, if you have responsibility, you have responsibility. But some people use that to punish their partner, or they use manipulative tactics. I don't teach anyone any of those kind of stuff. I teach how do you seduce a partner that you want, the one that you want. If you don't want them, it's very easy. Just dump them, right? You see, that shift in mindset was designed to rebuild attraction naturally, okay? Not by chasing, not by begging or forcing her feelings, or getting obsessive, because sometimes you don't really want them, but you're just obsessed because you're trying to prove a point to yourself, and effectively you're losing out, you're missing out on life. What I'm teaching you is by becoming grounded enough to stop feeding the unattractive dynamic. All right, so that's what I want to spend some time speaking to you about today. Let me see who is in the chat. Say thank you for welcome and the advice. I said so true, man. Great info for people struggling, teaching healthy strategies. Yes, absolutely. So if you want your marriage back, that's what I want to spend some time talking about today. We're going to examine that. We're going to go through this crazy loop that you're looking at in front of me right now. It looks simple on the screen, but it is not simple, right? So we're going to call it the rejection-repulsion spiral. Let me put that on the board so you can see it clearly. All right, this is the rejection, the rejection, repulsion. Should we call it spiral? Yeah, I think we can call it that, right? All right, so this is the rejection repulsion spiral. So it begins with discovery, right? You find a message, you notice a connection, right? Not the connection to you, obviously, right? You hear a confession. Maybe it's outright verbal confession from your partner. Maybe you stumble into an email, an email between them and somebody else saying your worst nightmare to another person entirely. Or it's just something you feel. Maybe you realize somebody else may now represent excitement. Sometimes it's as simple as their best friend. Their friends, they're always out and about, and they're ready to go on a boys trip, on a girls trip, and they hate the idea of bringing you along. It could be how you feel. It could be completely like they've told you, but other people, somebody else now represent excitement, represent peace, represent the one. We have a whole chapter in the book called The Myth of the One. Obviously the idea is that you want to be the one for your partner, the person you're married to for life. That's the ideal, right? But I tell you, see, the human mind is a very funny thing, right? So chapter 5 is about the myth of the one and the soulmate, right? But as you can imagine, it's not just about saying that there's no the one, right? But it's about understanding the dynamic of that, particularly in the midst of crisis, right? So this is what we mean when we say discovery, right? That's the discovery aspect of it. You find out that somebody else is occupying that space, right? So what does that feel like on your end? What does that feel like on your end, right? That discovery triggers rejection, right? Instead of reading the situation as information, if you were so logical, many people claim to be, I'm just a logical person. Yeah, right? What it does is that it literally, if you're a normal human being, it triggers rejection, okay? It triggers rejection. Instead of reading the information as just a particular status of, just information about the state of your marriage, you interpret it as a verdict on your personal value, right? Whoever this is must be better than me, right? That's how your brain interpret that. It must mean that this person, this idea, this business trip all the time, spending more time in hotels. Some people actually just go to work, right? It must mean that they would rather spend all that time without me. That's where most people find themselves, right? Unfortunately, real relief from life says it doesn't mean it's over, even if it feels like it's all crumbling. But just that they are missing something. Something is off somewhere. So the feeling of rejection is not uncalled for, but that's the feeling. But it's more so the state of a marriage. It's information about the state of the marriage that's worth assessing, right? But the human being is not logical. Okay, human being, we attempt to be logical. We're always working towards being logical. We're not logical. We are emotional beings, so we interpret the rejection, the discovery, as a form of rejection. So what happens after? So now rejection is not something that somebody did necessarily, or something that you intentionally feel. It's triggered because you're an emotional being. So what happened? That leads to obsession, right? That leads to objection. Rejection then becomes obsession. I've always said rejection breeds obsession, right? Your attention leaves your purpose in life, right? You start getting distracted from work, right? You start staging you start becoming who you're not, right? Your peace, your sense of self, right? So obviously you don't have self leadership, right? All that starts to disappear. It becomes your attention becomes fixed on the other person, the one, right? Not your fault, just naturally what happens where you feel rejected, right? You investigate them, you study them, you start bugging their cars. Shout out to Edoho. You start bugging the house. Suddenly you remember that we should put the ring in the house so that we can, security. But you know that you have ulterior motives. You start digging through their phone, looking for their password. Try to scan their face while they're asleep. You start replaying all the messages that are vague enough for you to interpret as negative. You start replaying all those messages. Start creating all type of Nollywood and Hollywood movies in your head of the worst case scenario, and you start monitoring every movement. There's no way that's fun. That's no fun. That's no fun, right? Well, what do we call it? You call it the evidence. You need to find the evidence. So that what? What's the purpose of the evidence? Because obviously you still want a marriage. So what is the purpose of the evidence? It's not your fault. It's just naturally what people do when they get obsessed, coming directly from a place of rejection. All right. So that obsession, why comparison? It produces comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. Now we're talking about comparison, the thief of joy. It's not a great place to be, guys. This is going to push them further and further away. It's going to draw a wedge, a bigger wedge between the two of you, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Worse is enough, right? English language. So that's obsession. That leads to comparison. You start comparing yourself. There's no way you're good enough, right? Even though you want to tell yourself you're good enough. Yeah? You want to tell yourself, I'm good enough, right? You start manifesting, I'm good enough, right? But your actions is not saying that, right? Obsession produces comparison, right? And it's usually an unfair comparison, okay? Because let's look at this, right? What are you comparing to? I'm not motivating you. I'm going to give you some facts, okay? What are you comparing yourself? You're comparing the novelty of an instant moment of a short period of time with history. Really? Is that what you're doing? You have years of history with this person usually, right? You're comparing the novelty with all that much experience, right? You're comparing presentation with your pain, right? Anyone can present as good. Anything can present as exciting in the heat of a moment, right? You're comparing best moments with your worst season. Is that really a fair comparison? It's not. It's not reality. Guess what lasts? What lasts the test of time? Is that the way to say that? What will stand the test of time is real life. Not the best moments, not the Instagram picture moments of a trip that somebody took, and it just seems like they're so happy, right? It seems like they're just the happiest at work during lunchtime, right? So of course, even if it's someone else, right? They're getting the best of them. They haven't seen the worst of that person, right? You've seen all of the above, and and this is why you probably want to still have them, because you know what the good times feel like, right? And the good times is not the same thing as the best time. The good times is better. I know this is English language, but the good times is better because it's much more sustainable. You just have to learn how to sustain it, right? The best times are fake. They're not sustainable, right? So anyway, it's unfair comparison, but if you're going through this situation, you don't know any better. Your emotions are getting the best of you. Emotions are just that. They don't produce good. You have to put them under control in order to produce good, right? So anyway, comparison produces neediness. It becomes needy behavior. Effectively becomes needy. You start becoming needy. It's not good. This is an anti-seducer, okay? This is an anti-seducer. You don't want to be this guy or this girl, right? Needy behavior, or you come off as needy. Never mind your intentions. That's what you come off as, right? You don't want to be this person, because this is going to, either in the form of you're over explaining, or you feel the need to, you're seeking approval, obsessively seeking approval from the other person. Basically, it's neediness. You're trying to get them to come to therapy with you. You're trying to just come to therapy. Maybe we can get this marriage back together. All of that can come off as needy behavior, and it works again. It's just pressure, and that pressure is going to drive even bigger wedges between you and your partner. Okay, so neediness is not where you want to be out. I understand why a lot of people come off as needy, or they become needy. You need reassurance, you need answers, right? Especially if you've discovered something that shattered your world, the idea that someone or something else is now the one, right? You need answers, you need immediate affection. You want everything to flip backwards almost immediately. We're just going to pretend that this did not deteriorate over a period of time, or we're just going to pretend that they just cheated on you, right? You need your position confirmed, reaffirmed. So what do? You start chasing, you start over talking, over explaining, you start pleading, you apologize, you plead, you apologize, you're defensive at the same goddamn time. You interrogate, you perform, you try to be better without being grounded, right? All of that will just create pressure, okay? And it's only a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb. Anyway, that neediness will create repulsion. It will create repulsion. All right. What do I mean by repulsion? Like repelling, like driving a wedge, like pushing back, like anti-magnetic, right? Magnetic rather, anti-magnetic, right? Your partner, they now experience emotional pressure, even if they are the culprit, right? They experience pressure. The other person appears lighter by contrast. The other space where they find themselves, when they're smiling every day, giggling, when they're at a party, they can't control themselves. It's like they don't want to come home, right? Yeah, everything else, including everyone else, will represent the opposite of emotional pressure, right? They don't feel safe. They don't feel safe around. It's not your fault. That's not what I'm just telling you how attraction works, right? So that increased distance will basically take you back into additional painful discovery, because remember, you are obsessed. You're looking for answers everywhere. Okay, it leads to more monitoring, it leads to more rejection, it gets worse. Okay, the spiral will repeat itself over and over. It's a ticking time bomb until it's no longer sustainable, and then it becomes divorce. Okay, divorce is actually in many ways sometimes like the best thing that can happen, right? The presence of another person is real, but you strengthen their position when you allow rejection to turn you into an anti-seducer. That's the picture I'm trying to paint for you here today. Many of my clients have gone through this process before they find me. Okay, the moment they find me, the relief, there's a sudden relief that really starts a new direction. I want to show you that new direction. I've had situations where it's been side chick situation. I had situation where there's been like another, there's a better man somewhere, a better woman, a best friend, a bestie, an outright sexual partner. Bottom line is, all of this, you can describe them as cheating, infidelity, adultery, whatever you want to call them. It could just be a work wife, a work husband situation that continues to take them away from you. So I completely get it. The moment you discover somebody else, rejection will tempt you to audition for your own marriage. It's crazy. You start seeking up, you start proving, you start performing, you start pleading, you start comparing. You lose yourself, right? Asking whether that other person is much more attractive. You get obsessed. You find their social media page and you start obsessing over their picture. You start looking like, what's it about them that they're looking for? Right? Are they more successful? Are they more peaceful? They're more exciting than you. But you cannot defeat that comparison by arguing that you're better. That's not going to work. Okay? You have to rise above the comparison. Stop abandoning yourself. Okay? Because if you're not good enough, they wouldn't marry you. I'm telling you right now, straight up. Okay? They're not going to marry you. Never mind people that say maybe it was just the wrong person. Incompatibility. Maybe your partner have been telling you it's incompatibility, right? They're telling you what they're feeling in the moment. They're telling you just what they know, right? But you know better now, right? But it's not going to be as simply as knowing better. But you need to stop watching them because the obsession is real. You need to stop measuring yourself through your partner's temporary attraction. It's temporary. Yeah, nothing lasts forever. The one that's lasted longest is you. So this unfair comparison, the rejection is painful. Don't get me wrong, but it does not have permission to turn you into a suffocator, because that's why you're an anti-seducer at this moment. All right? A suffocator is not what you want to be. You don't want to be a detective in your own marriage, a reactor, okay, a beggar. Right? You don't want to communicate, choose me because I no longer believe I am worth choosing. Don't do that. But it's not going to be as simple as I'm saying it right now. I completely get how you feel. Again, it's natural feelings when you feel a sense of rejection. So if you recognize yourself inside the rejection-repulsion spiral that I just shared with you, do not shame yourself, but do not remain there. Okay, you may not control the outside connection today in this moment, but you can stop feeding it with panic, comparison, interrogation, and neediness, because you are an enabler. Yeah, you're feeding it, right? But in order to do that, it needs to be well grounded. If you have a good support system, feel free to use it. But that's what we do here. We become a support system / coach and all of that, an environment for you where you can actually break that cycle and start rebuilding attraction again. There's a whole strategy around you. I'm going to give you a universal roadmap, but go to, if you want you want me to personally help you identify where you're surrendering your attraction, just go to getmymarriageback.com/discovery. All right, I'll show you how to recover your grounding without pretending the threat is not real. Okay, because the threat, whatever happened, whatever you saw, the discovery is real. Okay, but I'm telling you, you're comparing yourself. It's unfair to you, right? And that's making things worse. And that's where you can use some help, if you will. All right, so I want to show you the reattraction cycle. Let's get into the reattraction cycle. Today we're talking about married but in love with someone else. Okay. Majority of the advices you're going to get on the internet are people who went through this kind of situation, but they failed at rebuilding attraction. Okay, so of course their lens, their outlook on life is going to be like everybody will fail, and it's not true. Okay, some of the best relationships, the couple goals. They've gone through the worst that you can think of, and they've rebuilt even stronger attraction between the two of them, rebuilt even stronger marriages beyond just the one. Now they're building an empire together. So I don't just show you how to quote unquote marriage is, this is a status, it's just a certificate, right? We're talking about the underlying relationship between you and your estranged partner. How do you build it even stronger than ever before? Because it's grounded, right? That's what I want to talk about at this point in time. So we're going to go into the reattraction cycle. So the reattraction cycle, let's get through that real quick. The reattraction cycle. Yeah. Let's do this, baby. All right. So the reattraction cycle, yes, it also starts with discovery, right? It starts with discovery and some version of what I already shared with you, but we're going to take a different path. Okay, this is a universal roadmap, something to show you real quick, to show you what's possible, right? But this leads to grounding. I'm going to explain grounding, right? Nothing you do outside of grounding is going to stand. It's sort of like, a relationship with a person that you don't really know is because of the novelty. It's exciting, and you don't really know them like that, right? So that's not grounded. So it's not gonna, it's not gonna stand, right? After grounding, that leads to a purpose, right? Purpose. This is the path we're going to take. So if you do anything and you don't have a strong why, a why that's big enough to make you cry behind it, it's going to fail. Like anything else in life, it's going to fail. All right. So after purpose, what do we have? Purpose leads to self-discovery. You know how some people say, you need to discover yourself first. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You cannot discover self if you haven't been through pain. It's literally impossible. A person should discover themselves before what? How do you discover yourself without contrast? Discover yourself against what? You have no experience, right? So are you saying people have to go through first? I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about. You can discover just as much as what you know. Okay, this is just logic. Okay, it's a simple fact of life. Okay, you're not going to discover more than what you know because you're a human being. Okay, so but when you've gone through some things in life, self-discovery even becomes sharper. I'll give you an example. I remember the first time, because I use glasses. I'm short-sighted, right? So I can't see anything that's far. I need my glasses to drive when I don't know where I'm going, right? So, and I think I started using glasses when I was 38, right? Or 38, 39-ish, like less than a decade ago. For the longest, I would make fun of my wife because she uses glasses for as long as I've known her. So she uses it for reading. So I was like, I have sharp eyes. I will never need glasses. And I got this gig, and it was in healthcare, and they needed to do, their necessary tests and all that kind of stuff. And then they requested for a physical test, Now, I'm a tech person, so asking for a physical test when I'm actually going to be on laptop for the most part is weird, but, they requested for it. So I decided to take the test, and then the eye doctor was like, how could you see? I was like, what do you mean, how could you see? I was like, I can see. It's like, no, you can't. Can you read that again? I was like, and it was like, you can't see that. I was like, wait, what? See, you don't know what you don't know, right? So suddenly I discovered that my eyes were not as sharp as they were. What's the point I'm making here? You cannot discover what you can't comprehend. Okay, so let's stop with the self-discovery before marriage. Let's just stop it. Okay, altogether. That's the point here. So self-discovery is a beautiful place to be, believe it or not. So you've gone through some experiences, and now you have self-discovery. I digress on that. Self-discovery is how you can actually be a seducer. That's how you hone your seduction skills. You might be, when you don't know any better, when you're naturally a beauty to behold, right? A handsome guy. Everything about you is naturally attractive, naturally, but that only can last for so long. Okay, so self-discovery leads to becoming the seducer that you need to be. Seduction. Okay, that's you want to be able to do that from an intentional place. You're going to need that in long-term relationships and marriage. Okay, you're going to need that. And seduction leads to attraction. Obviously, seduction leads to attraction. Let's go here. None of this is going to happen outside of attraction. All right, so what do you mean attraction? No, it's not just physical. It's anything that you find attractive. Every human being have what they find attractive. Just think of it in that terms. It's not just physical. That's just one piece of it, right? That only lasts for so long, right? That's why just because you're beauty to behold can only last for so long. Once we've been there, done that, that becomes, So now that leads to when you have attraction and you can experience somebody now drawing back to you and they're connected to you again. Now you have evidence, or what we call confidence. Evidence or confidence. We're going to put that on the board right here. Evidence or confidence. All right. Evidence / confidence. Right? That becomes confidence. You have the evidence that becomes confidence, right? So once you've seen results, basically your confidence is boosted, right? All that because you're educated, you're experiencing what we're talking about. You're seeing your partner drawing back to you in real time because you did the work on self. Boom, right? You can see it. If you can see it, you do it over and over again. Everybody else says you just happen to be lucky. You're just a lucky one. Everybody else, once cheated, is over. And you're like, yeah, if you say so. Okay, that's all you've seen. Okay. Again, everybody only talks about what they know, right? So when you have evidence and confidence, that actually helps grounding even better. The grounding, because the foundation becomes stronger, as opposed to the fake foundation that most people create from just theoretical understanding. If you haven't been through this kind of stuff, you have an unfair advantage over people that haven't been through this kind of stuff, because your grounding, your foundation is actually going to be stronger. So this evidence actually feeds grounding even more. Okay, so let's go over what we just discovered. Okay, this is beautiful. Oh my God, this is beautiful. All right. It begins with the same discovery. Let's just do a quick understanding of what we're looking at, right? It begins, everything is triggered because you discovered that the one is something else or someone else, right? You no longer feel special. You don't feel significant, which is a basic human need, particularly in marriage, right? You don't feel as though that you're any more significant in that relationship, right? So the discovery triggers this path, but instead of going that path that I showed you earlier on, which is feeling or yielding to the sense of rejection you feel, you decided to engage some kind of grounding, right? We're not denying the messages, the affair, the attachment, or the person, the other person. The difference is what you do next, right? Discovery now moves you into grounding, right? Sometimes we call it your pause assessment to see what's going on, because hey, that just tells you information about the state of your marriage, right? So you slow your reactions. You don't react from that place of emotions of defeat, right? You don't become a defeatist in your mindset, which is what most people do, sadly, right? You return to gratitude. You return to prayer, right? Where appropriate, because prayer without work is useless, right? You fall back to patience, right? Emotional regulation, reality, because you have what you have in front of you and is real, right? You refuse to allow that. However, you refuse to allow that and all that new detail to control your state. So grounding now reconnects you to purpose, right? We're going in the direction of self-discovery, right? Instead of making the triangle your full-time mission, like going round and round and round, just getting obsessive, right? You redirect your pain into the life, the work, your health, parenting, because if you have kids, that you can't leave that hanging, right? Contribution, right? You have opportunity to contribute to other people that are not as fortunate as you are. Remember gratitude? Yes, that's what grounding does, right? You find your identity. You make sure you stay focused on your identity, because you are somebody. You're somebody's daughter, somebody's son before all of this happened. So purpose will lead you into self-discovery and self-leadership. Make sense? Yes or yes? So we've gone to grounding, getting you back into purpose, right? Self-discovery. That's the GPS. If you don't notice, we do have a 3 core pillars here called the GPS. That's the GPS right there, right? You need to be grounded in these 3 things before you could do anything else. Anything else you do outside of this is going to fail. Okay, you're going to push your partner even further away. Even worse, you will struggle with future relationships, because it's easy like, no, I will just dump them. I just dump them and move on. I will never accept that. It's not that simple. Because it's never about the other person. At the end of the day, it's about you. Your reactions are actions you're responsible for. So your shadow follows you everywhere you go. So there's no escaping. Once you've had this type of discovery in life, there's no escaping it. You're going to feel what you feel, a sense of rejection, and you're going to attempt to prove yourself to everything that comes along for the rest of your life. That's not where you want to be at. And you're going to train your kids to behave the same way when it comes to, what's the behavior I'm talking about? I'm not talking about dumping a person. If you can dump a person and go find healing, perfect. But most people don't do that. They dump a person and blame everything on everything else but self. That is a problem. That's a problem. That's the wrong foundation to build the rest of your life on. Self-leadership does not mean forcing your partner to choose you, because that's not leadership, right? It means taking authority over your conduct, emotional energy, your decisions, contribution to the marital dynamic, to your own self first, because you cannot afford to pour from an empty cup. And that self-discovery leads you, it makes seduction possible again. Seduction is not manipulation. Okay, it is creating an emotional experience through patience, restraint, confidence. Confidence is always sexy. I keep telling you that. And it is not as easy as telling myself I'm confident or I'm independent. That's most of the time useless. It's as useless as the words that's altering it. Okay, there's something that you have to exude, you have to live it, you have to experience it, right? That's why I said evidence/confidence, right? Social intelligence, warmth, mystery, not being so predictable, right? And self-command. You begin removing the anti-seducers, okay, which we can discuss another time. Things like neediness, policing, moralizing, reacting, emotional suffocation. What do you mean moralizing? People should just do the right thing. Welcome to the real world. I know you're a perfect human being. The rest of us will continue to try to be perfect, okay? Seduction creates room for attraction. You don't just press buttons for attraction. Seduction creates room for attraction, especially if you have history with this person. Remember what I told you about the unfair comparison. You're comparing with novelty, heat of the moment nonsense that people think they can run away from their problems. No, that's not going to. If you know what you're doing, it has no standing. Regardless of what it looks like on the surface, it has no standing. You are always in control. You have that stronghold on them, but you only have that power if you know you have it. Okay? So that's evidence. Confidence is building. I hope that's making sense, guys. So we've gone through seduction, self-discovery, attraction, right? Yeah, we've done that. Attraction, leaves room for attraction. And now you see this happening in real time. You can literally feel the connection happening in real time. And that's evidence that actually builds even stronger and stronger foundation. Now you're building something that's not on shaking ground anymore. All right. Remember, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So you might not have seen it, but there was some type of division between the two of you, right? So you're building better grounding, because even every positive signs, you can't stand on that. You need something that fuel, just like the negative stuff was fueling itself, and it was getting worse and worse, right? You need something that continues to fuel itself and get bigger and bigger, but this time much more sustainable, because what you're building over and over is the grounding, right? And the grounding protects the progress. All right. So many people believe attraction is fate, compatibility, it either is there or is not. Yes, the one in the beginning, the novelty, when you don't know the person, yes, you're right. But for long-term relationships, for marriages that work, no, it is not by fate. Okay. When I say fate, people paint a picture of somebody appears, chemistry happens, and suddenly that person must be the one, right? But attraction is not something that happens by accident. It's not, there's no accident in this life. Just understand that, know this and know peace, right? Because if there was, we wouldn't be enjoying all the technology we're enjoying. And scientists don't depend on fate. Okay, doesn't mean we're not lucky sometimes. Okay, doesn't mean what you're talking about is things outside of our control, but we have enough things in our control that you can actually use to influence the kind of result you're looking for. Okay, so in that same sense, attraction is influenced by emotional experience. We know this, right? It's influenced by confidence. Confidence is always sexy. It's influenced by social dynamics, our environment, how we connect with other people in our society, in our environment, polarity, sexual polarity, right? Masculine, feminine energy, it is real, all right? Restraint, leadership, self-leadership in particular, seduction. You cannot force your partner's feelings. That's granted. That is a fact, right? That we can put somewhere and note it, and now it becomes something that we can learn how to navigate, because we cannot control that, right? But you also do not have to surrender, right, to this idea that another person's arrival has permanently decided your future. You can't surrender to that, because first of all, it's not real, right? So how do you do that? You ground yourself, you redirect pain into purpose, you lead your own behavior, self-discovery, you remove the neediness effectively, right? Say effectively you remove the neediness. Okay, you stop policing, you remove the panic, because panic kills attraction. Now you may not control the entire outcome, okay, but you can stop making the rival's position stronger. How's that, right? The attraction may begin by chance, but sustaining it, attraction is built through intention. All right, I hope this really helps today. I hope this helps someone. By now you should see that rebuilding attraction is not about pretending the other person does not exist, okay, or that there's nothing else replacing you effectively. That may be real, all right? It is about refusing to become intimidated into unattractive behavior, right? So you get intimidated so badly and then you become even worse. You don't need another generic instruction to communicate more. Everybody say just communicate better. Everybody knows that communication is the bedrock of marriage. Well, if it was that simple, I wonder why they're all struggling, right? You need to understand the exact attraction dynamic operating inside your marriage crisis, all right? And that's what I help you with here. You can book a private discovery session at getmymarriageback.com/discovery, and let's identify your strongest leverage points, okay? And then build a strategy from grounding, purpose, and self-discovery. All right. So now the other person may currently represent the one, okay? Other person or thing, because oftentimes we find that it's not cheating on infidelity, but it's not adultery, but it's still cheating, right? Or infidelity. There is a difference between adultery, cheating, and infidelity. If you didn't know, there's a difference, right? But some type of betrayal, it could be, oftentimes it's still some type of betrayal, but again, that does not mean you must become the desperate one, right? You don't go from feeling like you're not the one to becoming the desperate one. So comparison is real and is really the thief of joy. The intimidation is optional. It's about, do you know what you're doing? Do you know yourself? Do you know how strong you are in that context? Rejection is painful, but objection is not a strategy, even though rejection breeds obsession. So we have to contain that and put that in control. And neediness does not communicate love. Your intentions might be love, maybe, I don't know, but it does not communicate love. In a marriage crisis, it's mostly communicates fear, and fear is going to destroy everything in its path if it's not controlled. You cannot rebuild attraction begging people to be with you, okay? You cannot rebuild attraction or regain your power asking them to give you power. You have to take your power back. And when it comes to seduction, it begins when you stop forcing and start embodying it. Like, you have to embody it. You can't, it's not something you talk into life. It's something that you have to build piece by piece, you know, with what you already have in you. So grounding protects your peace, and you need better and better grounding. We need to rebuild grounding, but we need to have it also growing even as you continue to get better in all of this, right? So attraction has a better chance of returning when your partner can experience, when they can experience you without the panic driven, fear driven activities like the obsessive explaining, right? All that kind of stuff. They need to be able to experience you without all of that. And that's difficult to do when you have the discovery looming in your mind, creating multiple movies of the worst case scenario, right? So what generally happens is you become very needy, right? They can feel it. They can feel your energy in that respect, right? So we got to be careful with all of that. All right. So again, if today's lessons help you, I'd appreciate if you would like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. I'll see you very, very soon. And when you're ready to stop allowing rejection, obsession, and comparison to dictate your marriage strategy, book your private section. We call it discovery session at getmymmarriageback.com/discovery. Hopefully you've been enlightened, educated. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. God bless. Peace.
Are you fighting to save a marriage or a relationship, or simply avoiding to end up in a broken or toxic one?
We've been there, and you're in the right place. You see, inside this book, right, you will find and you will discover the secret to save a broken marriage, and you will learn how to build and attract the marriage of your dream.